Hey friends, Charles here, full-time Googler, part-time YouTuber, and I guess digital nomad too. If you've been following me for a while, you'll know that recently I decided to pack up my bags, pack my laptop, and hop on a plane to try out this digital nomad lifestyle. And my digital nomad journey has come to an end for now, so I feel like I can really offer some honest thoughts on my experience so far and all of my reflections going forward into the future. And it may seem a bit like the perfect kind of life, but being a digital nomad isn't always as enticing or as amazing as it seems. And there's 100% some hard-hitting realities which I really wish I knew about sooner. And although my digital nomad lifestyle has taken a little bit of hiatus recently, the travel content is still in full force. So if you're not already, subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up, and let's get into this video. So first of all, why did I actually become a digital nomad? Or why did I want to give that lifestyle a go? Well, of course, everyone's got different reasons. But for me, I just really wanted to take advantage of the fact that Google was allowing a remote working situation and being able to travel and connect with friends that I also knew were going to be traveling and being in the locations that I was going to be in was a really good way of just getting away from the UK and avoiding the kind of horrible, miserable winter months and news and just all that crap that was going on in the UK in kind of like November, December time. If you're curious to know why I chose Malta as the first digital nomad location, check out the pop-up banner here because I made a full video on that. I actually did some research on the top 10 digital nomad destinations and you can see those right about here. And funnily enough, Portugal is actually up there with 3 different cities as like the top 10 digital nomad destinations according to Nomad list. And Lisbon was number 2, which makes me, feeling pretty confident about my decision to go there. Let's talk planning. I think a real misconception that people have about traveling or being a digital nomad or going to all these different places is that you have to plan every kind of second of your day and know what you're doing, what week and what month and all these different things. And I think while it's useful to have a little bit of a loose schedule, things never actually always go as planned. Like things come up, like the all-day nature adventure in Lisbon, didn't know about that before going, and it even got rearranged because of like weather and things like that. But me and Mike were able to make it. So I think having a plan sometimes defeats a little bit of the spontaneity that traveling and being a digital nomad can actually bring by getting to know the place that you're going to be. And look, you may be watching this thinking like, but I love to plan. That's completely fine too. And like some people prefer to slow travel as well, where it's kind of like the opposite, where you're kind of just meeting local people, cultures, food and music. And it kind of relies on the idea that a trip is meant to educate and have some kind of emotional impact right now and also like in the future when you look back on the trip thinking like, hell yeah, I learned something. But I think just having the freedom to choose how long you stay somewhere means that you're just a little bit more relaxed. Like I definitely was, and that's when the best experiences happen. And like some of these moments are just completely spontaneous. Like me and Joe went on a scooter at like 3 AM in the middle of Lisbon after like going out to a club. Maybe a little bit irresponsible, but hell yeah, was it a good time. I will say though that all the activities that I did actually do, for almost all of them I think like pre-booked at least like 24 or 48 hours in advance. And you know what, I'm really glad I did that because I really got to experience some amazing Airbnb experiences. And if you want to know a little bit more about the activities that I did, then definitely check out the pop-up banner here for a more in-depth look at the Malta and Lisbon activities that I got up to while I was there. And I think the key thing with being a digital nomad versus being on holiday is you kind of have a little bit of time to figure things out. Like if you want to find your local supermarket or your local gym, you don't necessarily have to go to like a resort where it has everything for you, because the kind of part of the whole point of being a digital nomad is you want to go and explore the place, get to know it, have time away and do your job like remotely. So I think in terms of activities and things, for sure book them. Roughly know that you're going to have the amenities near you that you need, like some kind of like supermarket or bakery or gym or whatever you kind of need. And pretty much from there, on a planning perspective, you're pretty set. And you know what? I was in these places for months and I still feel like I could have stayed longer. For sure, there's always more to do. There's always more people to meet. There's always more places to visit. But you know what? That's why you go again, right? Okay, big section. Let's talk costs. And I think the general consensus that people have, maybe rightly or wrongly, is that doing a digital nomad trip is going to cost you loads and loads of money. And I think it's going to be some 5-star hotel and a really fancy resort. But if you're spending more than you're making in your job or side hustle or whatever you're doing, I think you're probably doing digital nomading wrong. Like, I was ready to have a little bit of a change in budgeting for when I was away, so that I knew I was going to be able to book activities that I wouldn't be able to do in my everyday life at home. But really, other than that, you should only be paying for accommodation and groceries. When you're there, unless you already have like some committed rent or mortgage, you're not going to have to pay for like bills, car insurance, or things like council tax in the place that you're there. Like, some places definitely more expensive than others. Malta definitely more expensive than Lisbon. I definitely probably spent a little bit more than I was expecting to, but I also didn't stay in like the cheapest possible locations that I could have. So it really depends on your budget. I think you could be a digital nomad and have an amazing time and stay in like a budget hostel, meet loads of people. You could stay in like a co-living, spend a little bit more, meet amazing people, and like upgrade your accommodation a little bit. Or if you want to go all out, you could for sure stay in like a 5-star hotel. And I actually think the more this side of the line you are, in terms of like the hostels, the co-living spaces, the Airbnbs, you're going to have a more enjoyable digital nomad experience compared to if you're in a hotel. And particularly if you don't want to necessarily pay for a hotel, which is, you know, hella expensive, go for these ones. That's what I did. It was still a really good experience. Let's talk connection, and I think this is the most overlooked piece of digital nomading. Fundamentally, if you want to be a digital nomad, you need to work somewhere that has a good Wi-Fi connection. Malta has supposedly one of the best 5G like things in Europe. Didn't get to use it because my roaming didn't allow it for whatever, but the actual like internet speed was like reliable, it was decent, and it actually meant that I was able to like get work done and be on video calls super smoothly, no problems. According to a study which actually spoke to some digital nomads, they said that connection was like one of the highest, if not the highest and biggest challenge of being a digital nomad. So I think if you're looking to do this, for sure, check on your Airbnb, in your co-working space, in your co-living, that the Wi-Fi is solid, it is reliable, and that you're going to be actually able to use it for whatever you need to do it for. The biggest challenge I actually had was that they all had slow upload speeds, and so like uploading content for the YouTube channel would take like half a day or a day. Thankfully, the co-working space in Lisbon was like gigabit internet, so I just did all my uploading there. Okay, so let's talk accommodation. And I think fundamentally, everyone can choose to travel in a £50 a night place or a £500 a night place if you want to. You can go in a hostel, you can go in an Airbnb, you can go in a hotel, you can stay in a van if you want to, right? For me, I was primarily there in these places to work, right? Like, all the holiday and fun stuff was like on the side. I actually needed a place that was safe, that was close to like amenities. Also, I didn't want to have to like travel far if I wanted to go to the beach or swimming pool, all that kind of stuff, because if I'm after work, I just want to go for a swim, whatever. So I chose to go with Airbnb. The costs varied completely depending upon Malta and Lisbon. Malta was a bit more expensive compared to Lisbon. Malta I stayed with friends, so that obviously offset the cost. Lisbon I also stayed with Joe for a fair bit of the time, and then some of the time I had it on my own because he had some friends going into the Airbnb. But I think realistically it depends on your budget 100%, but Airbnb I think is a really good option. They even have a little Wi-Fi thing as well on Airbnb now, so you can add like a Wi-Fi speed test, so that's good compared to what I just talked about. So I think for most people, Airbnb is like a pretty good way of doing this. However, I also found out that there's some places, particularly in South America, but also in Portugal, called Salinas, where you can basically stay at all different levels, and it's more of like a co-living space. So if you're after something where you get to meet people, aside from in a co-working space, then a co-living space like a Salina is probably a way to go, and they have options for pretty much every budget. I actually did some research when I was looking to filming this video, and I was so surprised that like 51% of people who are digital nomads live in hotels. If you've got the money to, for sure do it. But if you want to meet people, I would definitely stay in like a co-living space or an Airbnb combined with a co-working. Let's talk time management and discipline. And by discipline, I don't mean like discipline in a secondary school because you're being told off for not doing something that you should have been doing.
We're going to have some discipline around here.
No, I'm talking about like discipline in terms of like spending my time wisely between actual work and like leisure time. And I think I definitely had to use my time wisely because I had to get the work that I was doing like done to enjoy everything that Malta and Lisbon had to offer. Like, still had to do my Google day job. I still had to like film content for the YouTube channel for you guys. So I think key for me was just taking a few days off, making sure I wasn't swamped. And I understand that not everyone can do that, but it's just about a little bit of like thinking that, hey, I'm gonna be in this place for a month. If I just work flat out every single day of that month, while I'm there, I'm only gonna have the evenings and weekends. When I can, let's try and take a few days here and there and plan some activities around the days that you are going to take off. And sometimes, you know, the blurred lines between working remotely in a country and it's like 30 degrees and you're also kind of like in a little bit of a holiday mode, for sure. Like when people are asking you to do things and it's like 30 degrees heat outside and it's like sunny and the sea's glistening and you're just thinking like, oh my days, I'd just love to go for a little swim. Sure. You kind of have to just like, you know, balance it out a little bit between, hey look, the sea's not going anywhere. I'm here for at least a month or 2 months. It's okay, Charles. Get the work that you need to do done, and then 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you can go down and have a nice swim. And I think for sure, from Lisbon, one of the best learnings was that having that co-working space was like so valuable for me. Having a little bit of a routine just was so useful to help me like manage my time. And do you know what? The time zones and the places that I chose based on the time zones that I actually went to were actually like pretty crucial to actually being able to do that. Like the difference was 1 hour in Malta and no time at all in Lisbon. So when I was in Malta, I had an extra hour in the morning where I could just go to the gym, explore a little bit of Malta, go for a morning dip in the pool. And Lisbon, well, it was exactly the same time as the UK. So I just knew if it was 10 o'clock in Lisbon, it was 10 o'clock in the UK. No problems. I think the biggest thing that like people, managers, bosses of companies worry about is that people are going to be like more unproductive, or they're going to be unproductive when they're kind of like in a new place versus if they were in an office. Kind of why, you know, companies are trying to pull people back to the office, right? But for me, I was getting mentally and physically tired from just working at home in the UK in kind of like October, November, December, and basically throughout the whole pandemic, right? So for me, this was like a massive break away from that. And so because it was so refreshing, I was actually more productive, I think, in Malta and Lisbon when I was working compared to when I was at home working in the studio. So actually, I think it was like a real big lift of my productivity and just mentally made me feel so much better about work, life, world, everything. And like, sure, there was still pressure to do work, but ultimately I was in a better place, like physically and also like mentally, when I was actually getting that work done. So yeah, all good things there. So paperwork and visas. Now look, this is probably the least exciting part of the video, but it's one of those things you just got to deal with. So fundamentally, when you're traveling abroad to like a place like Australia or America or much of Europe, you're probably gonna need some sort of visa if you're there for a long period of time. Now look, in the times that I was in Malta and Lisbon, for the whole time I was there, I actually didn't need to get a visa. Because the UK is now outside of the EU, I would have needed to have got a visa. And if you're thinking of going to Europe and you're staying there for a long period of time or anywhere else, you're probably going to need to get some kind of visa or some kind of like work stay. There are definitely countries that are like wising up and offering like digital nomad visas. So like Malta is definitely one. I know Colombia is one. I think Vietnam's one too. And there's other paperwork and legal things that you've got to consider. Like, do you need some sort of like foreign health insurance? Do you need to get like a foreign SIM card, or do you need to kind of get like mail and all these kind of things that you need to consider? I think the perfect level of time, in my opinion, to be in a place is like 1 to 3 months. If you're anything more than 3 months, you're probably going to need to get some long-term visa. If you're anything shorter than that, then that's also totally fine too. When it gets to the 3 month period, that's the point in time where you need to consider what's the costs at home, what are the kind of documents and posts that I'll have at home, and how is that arranged for me? And also, like, when I'm in this country, do I need to get something that makes me more of like a resident of that place? The last thing we need to consider that I've reflected on is just the social life and loneliness that are like potentially gonna happen if you're digital nomading alone. Like, apparently the biggest challenges of being a digital nomad is like the social opportunities and loneliness and isolation, or like lack thereof of social opportunities. And I think this can 100% play a big factor in digital nomad life. If you're away for long periods of time, you're going to meet some incredible people, but you're not really going to have the same like deep connections with them, because fundamentally you're going to be on the move, they're also going to be on the move. So in my case, I knew that I was going to meet friends there and like share the accommodation in Malta and Lisbon, so I wasn't really like too worried about that. But also on the flip side, it also means that I didn't get to meet as many people as I kind of wished to. I definitely still met people because we went to Mike's co-living space and met a load of people there, and in the co-working space too, we met some really cool people. If I was just on my own, I would probably have like put myself out there to meet more people, going to a co-working space, living in like an actual co-living space like Selena, like I talked about earlier. Would definitely do that if you're considering doing this on your own. But I think if you're planning to be in a place long term and you've got some friends back home, invite them for a week, invite them for a weekend, something like that. It will make the trip so much better, and it will just feel like a nice experience in my opinion. Reflecting on the digital nomad experience as a whole, for sure there were some lows, for sure there were some challenges, like it cost more than I thought, all the COVID tests and that kind of stuff was a little bit of a faff. But you know what, overall, 100% worth doing. I would definitely do it again. You know what, I'd go back to Lisbon, I'd go back to Malta. I would love to go to some places like South America, like I've got a friend in Colombia right now. I'd love to go to Japan, 100% would do it again. And you know what, it's made me think that I actually want to go to a place for like a minimum of a month. When someone's like to me, so do you want to go to Europe and like visit Germany for like 2 or 3 days? I'm like, can we go for like 2 weeks minimum or a month? I just really want to go to a place and get to know it and actually experience what it's like to live there, work there, and just meet some awesome people while I'm there too. Hope you found my musings and reflections on my digital nomad experience helpful for yourself if you're considering doing a trip. In this playlist here, it's got all my digital nomad videos within it. If you've got any more questions on life as a digital nomad and my experience, and you want to ask me anything, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for watching, subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.